everybody. It's Thanksgiving week for those of you in the United States. Since there weren't a lot of live streams last week, I apologize about that. I wanted to make sure that we had live streams this week, so I'm really focusing on live streams. There'll be this live stream, as you can see, and there will be a live stream later tomorrow, which is probably going to be a Q&A because nothing's happening. Everybody's going on Thanksgiving vacation. And then I'll have a video for Friday. So a little stuff going on there. And of course, Movie Math is up right now as well. And Movie Math, by the way, will not only still be on Sunday this week, but I'll make sure it goes back to being on time. All right, so it's the first Monday, first live stream of the month. So time to gift some memberships here. Woohoo! Thank you so much. It's my way of honoring the huge generosity of so many of you. So thank you. Aw, yay. Thank you, Angela. For those of you asking about Moana, something came up, so I wasn't able to attend the press screenings today, and I just don't have time with my schedule, so I'm not going to actually review Moana. But I will. I got to tell you, those smaller films, like Inside Out 2, as a review, just really didn't perform, I think with Moana 2, either you're going to see it or you're not. I actually don't think that I'm going to even see it. But I will be covering the box office numbers, of course, on Sunday. All right, so we have a lot of, let's see here. Thanks, Ethan. I'm glad you feel that way. So, the awards are coming up fast. Award season is coming up quite quickly. Not only on December 9th are the Golden Globe nominations, but also I get my voting ballot for the Critics' Choice Awards. I get my nominations ballot on December 1st, and then I always share my nominations, and then I'm actually going to do something a little bit fun with my actual vote. Once the nominations are decided, I get to cast my vote for who I think should win the Critics' Choice Award. So we'll be going through all that, and then also the Oscar nominations come out on a Friday this year, which is kind of weird. I don't think they used to come out on Fridays, right? But Friday, January 17th. So for some of the bigger movies that I really like, these are films that I think are only medium. Sorry, that's why they're getting this fun mini review package, and it'll be fun to talk to you guys about them, although, of course, no spoilers. Thank you, Not Modern Art History. But the films that, I feel bad that I didn't do a full review on Conclave, but I was very busy at that time. But I haven't seen A Complete Unknown yet, but I think I'm going to like it. Oh, thank you, Emilio. But for The Brutalist and for Nosferatu, those are getting full review videos because I like them quite a bit. It's interesting. I like films that are very specific, in terms of their storytelling. They have structure. So that's why I like Nosferatu. Yeah, Nosferatu has structure. That's why I like Nosferatu. That's why I like The Brutalist. That's why I like Conclave. But these kind of like meandering films aren't really my bag. But I did watch them as a responsible voter. And so I wanted to share my thoughts on them. Also, because it's very slow and we needed something to talk about. We couldn't do 2 Q&As, so that's why tomorrow will be a Q&A. Thank you, Dancing Dog 60. I don't know if I'm going to review Baby Girl either. I'm on the Nicole Kidman train. I love Nicole Kidman, but I just, there are some things where I'm like, I don't really know if I need to see that in particular. Like, we'll see. It's interesting. You'll see when I do my votes for my own Critics' Choice nominations, I'm more mainstream than a lot of my peers. So it's always interesting to me. I would love to see more mainstream film get recognized. Like, I think the campaign to get more horror performances recognized is something that I certainly can get behind. I don't like that something has to be an awards film to really compete. Caden, I'm not going to do an Arcane spoiler review. Again, I think most people have checked out for the holiday from what I'm seeing. And also, I did not have fun reviewing Arcane Parts 1 and 2. And it was a very low-performing video. So I'm not going to go through the headache of, doing a spoiler review just to argue with people. It's like, what's the point? I don't really, no thanks. I might watch Blitz tonight. I might watch Blitz this evening. I'm not going to tell you if I think Brutalist or Conclave is better. I'm going to have my top 10 movies coming out actually in the next few weeks. All right, so thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for joining me for this. We're going to go through these 3 movies. At the end of each section, you may ask me questions about that specific film. And then, of course, as always, at the end of the stream, you may, ask me anything that you'd like mini version. Hey, Jordan, thanks for joining. Although I will say, sometimes, just like all other voters, sometimes you vote for some, will I still nominate Nicole Kidman for Baby Girl? Probably. I scrubbed through Amelia Perez, I don't really think that. I mean, I kind of I respect that film, but, I just watched these 3 movies. I can't do another one. It's like it's too many of the same type of film, especially for a film that I don't like, or type of film that I don't like. I thought Zoe Saldana, what I saw was impressive. So, I mean, I would, if as I'm filling out, although I have to say I watched Juror Number 2, and I'm going to nominate Toni Collette for Best Supporting, although I don't think anybody else is, but I'm going to go for it. I'm going to try and do it. I thought Toni Collette was fantastic in that movie. All right, so let's go through the sections. All right, so mini review number 1. Hold on. You guys are trying to get me in trouble with fandoms. Don't ask me what I like Selena Gomez, okay? I don't think she's the most amazing actress, but I think, when she's well cast, she does a great job. I think she's very good on Only Murders. I think she's very well utilized there. I like her quite a bit on Only Murders in the Building. Let's focus on the positive. All right. Someone's like, haha, runs to Twitter and puts that up there. And then Selena Gomez fans are like, pitchforks. And then I'm like, why am I dealing with this? Okay. Story number 1. Boop. All right, so here I have some slight chapter times just to guide our conversation. Although for each film, I've done something fun. I have decided a film that it reminds me of. As Shakespeare apparently borrowed, there's nothing new under the sun. So everything is kind of inspired by other things. No spoilers, by the way, for any of these movies, please. So in this one, by the way, let me I have stills to kind of give you a flavor of the movie as we go through it. So here's a flavor of the movie for Anora. And I really think, honestly, Anora is a realistic take on Pretty Woman. I think that's clearly the way it's pitched. I think that's probably what the awards pitch is. And I have to tell you, even though I thought the film was only medium, I think that's a great pitch. It's only medium, but yet I do appreciate the realism. This was not directed by Mr. Gary Marshall. And on that note, I want to warn you that if you decide to watch Anora, it's an adult movie. It is very much, it does not shy away from the escort, the life of a dancer and an escort, and they show you a lot of stuff, right? You're like, the intimacy coordinator was on set every day and had lots to do. I think, I don't know if the movie needed to, part of me is I don't know if the movie needed to go that far, but then also I don't like that Hollywood and entertainment for so long has tried to sell a fairy tale. That's literally the line from Pretty Woman, I want the fairy tale. And you're like, but this is already a fairy tale. I think they should be more realistic about what these situations are like so that people who decide to voluntarily go into them are a little bit more aware of what they're getting themselves into. And so I guess if you are considering this life, you should watch Pretty Woman. Not Pretty Woman. You should watch Anora. Some people feel like they would be Pretty Woman, and I'm like, no, you're going to be Pretty Woman. Anora. Sorry. All right. Now, this reminds me of another film that did a similar kind of comparison thing and did quite well. That's, of course, Driving Miss Daisy and Green Book. Now, Driving Miss Daisy was a huge Oscar winner, and I have to tell you that during the pandemic, I rewatched the film. I didn't remember it at all because I'd seen it when I was very little. And I have to say that it does not age well. You're like, whew, this is very antiquated. Let's just put it that way. It's a very well-made film, obviously incredibly well acted, but, I don't really think that I don't think it holds up today. It's very much, it's not a timeless film. It is a film of its era, which was important at the time. Now, I think the Green Book, well, I know the Green Book was pitched as a realistic or a flip. Well, that wasn't realistic, but they did a flip on Driving Miss Daisy. They pitched it. They said, oh, we reversed it. This time, the black character's in the back and the white person's in the front, driving them around. And that was an extremely effective pitch. So much so that not only, of course, did Mahershala Ali win, although he infamously spent his Oscar capital on Blade, but the movie won Best Picture. I mean, it was like, it's not always I wouldn't say Green Book was a bad movie. I'd say it's a very, very bland film. So that's kind of how I feel about Green Book. And when I see Anora, I feel like it's the same pitch, but with Pretty Woman. And I think that if Anora has any traction at all, it's because it's doing the exact same thing. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the movie itself. So this is directed by Sean Baker. He's done a number of films over the years. He's a very existential type of filmmaker. He's never had a film that hit quite the level of Anora. I think, again, because I think it has that realistic Pretty Woman take on it that gets mainstream audiences to be like, okay, maybe I would try this. Whereas his other films, I think, were just so niche that even if they were as well as highly regarded, you're just not going to get mainstream audiences to check them out. A lot of you are mentioning the Florida Project. I believe that had some awards traction as well. But I think that, so Sean Baker, though, I have to say, he doesn't give this film any structure. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who also saw Anora, and it was pretty weird in the middle of the movie when they went searching for this Russian, the son of a Russian oligarch, this dude, and apparently my friend felt they searched for him in real time. She was like, do I have to go looking for him too? I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, I thought those sequences actually were some of my favorite in the movie because I think that the cast is so charismatic. I think the film is moderately written. I think it's moderately directed, but I think it's extremely well cast. I think that this film has an incredible cast. I think that I don't want to give away. I mean, I really like this guy right here. I don't want to give too much away because he's so good. I think his role was so interesting and he did such a nice job. But even these other guys, I think the movie was just, it was fun to be around these characters. So I think that helped quite a bit. Now, of course, Mikey Madison is getting a lot of attention for her work here. And for a while, some of you are saying now Ariana is the front runner, although isn't Ariana, she's in supporting. Nicole Kidman is a strong contender, but a lot of people have Mickey Madison pegged as the winner, who's most likely to win Best Actress. And I think it's because it's a slow year. I don't think she has a ton of competition. But I don't think Cynthia Erivo is going to, we'll see. We'll see how much heat Wicked gets. I think it's going to be hard for Wicked. I think for Wicked, the win will be just the nominations. Big movies like that have a hard time getting acting noms. So we'll see. But anyway, I think that Mickey Madison is just wonderful. I think she does a really nice job. I think that it's a very bold performance. I think that, she doesn't try and make Anora perfect, which I think some other actresses might do. I said I thought she'd be a good Harley Quinn, as Dancing Dog 60 just pointed out. I do. I think she'd be wonderful. I think, I said that because I felt like I was watching Harley Quinn. I thought she was just so perfect in that regard to be cast in that way. But, I think it's a really interesting performance. It is a dynamic performance. I think it has a lot of heart. So even though, I'll be honest with you, if I had to vote for her or Pamela Anderson, I would vote for Pamela Anderson to win. I think Pamela Anderson was a little better, which we're going to talk about in The Last Showgirl. But so I would nominate Mickey Madison, but I don't think that I would cast her. She's nothing like Punchline Mystic. Hair dye exists. She could be blonde. I don't even think Harley's a real blonde. Okay. I hate the Punchline character. I hope that character goes away. Horrible character. Okay. I don't need Harley Quinn dealing with that garbage. Okay. And again, as I said, the overall cast, I think, is really, really strong. Everybody here did a great job. There's also one other guy who's not even actually included, but they did a wonderful job as well. So I think this film is solid. I think this film is worth your time if you want to see what everybody's going to be talking about during award season. I do not recommend. I don't think it has to be seen in theaters. I think that it's fine to eventually watch on digital or streaming. But why do I hate Punchline, Zeke? Because she has no own personality. She has no gimmick, except she's just a replacement for Harley Quinn. And I think Harley Quinn should be above that. This idea, I mean, Harley Quinn's supposed to have escaped from the Joker. And this idea that she has to deal with his ex is just so infuriating to me and such garbage that it's like, I don't like Harley having to deal with that. Oh, but John liked Anora. I'm glad you liked it so much. So I think Anora is something that's good for streaming. John Patrick, I think Uncut Gems is much better than Anora. Uncut Gems, in my opinion, is a far better film. I think the Safdie brothers, in my opinion, are better filmmakers than Sean Baker. Because what was that movie with Robert Pattinson? I also like that better as well. So that's just my opinion. I think Uncut Gems is Good Time, thank you. I think Uncut Gems is a very flattering Good Time. I think it's a very flattering comparison to say that Anora is like that. I think if you feel, and also Adam Sandler's performance in Uncut Gems was just like on fire. He was just at the top of his game, the most Adam Sandler-y he's ever been. It was incredible. But you know what it's like? Julia Fox, who, has gone on to have a very, let's just say, unique persona and career. It's like if someone made a movie about that character. And I have to be honest with you, I thought Julia Fox was very good in Uncut Gems. I thought she was excellent. But she apparently was not acting. That's just what she's like. And so she couldn't really go anywhere from there. But she was excellent in that movie. But Mikey Madison is an actual actress. And I think she just did a really, really good job. Okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions about this movie? Thank you, John Patrick. I'm glad that we can find some common ground there. Some people really like Anora. So, you should try it for yourself. It has a very high Rotten Tomatoes score. Natra says, on a side note, I think that's why Batman and Catwoman are a very popular couple. Selena starts as an escort, and Bruce the billionaire, a dark, messed up comic book fairy tale. Really? But they're never really together. She keeps rejecting him. I don't see that way. That's interesting. But, I'm not sure what the male perspective is on it. That's fascinating to me. I think I view it very much from the female perspective. Oh, I watched Heretic, B-Weeb. As I said on Movie Math, it was like a date, going on a new date, and the person's just, talking forever about one subject, and you're like, oh my God, this is the whole date? It's not a date movie, Andre. I mean, it depends what kind of couple you are. If you're the kind of couple who likes to watch adult content together, then, it might be too tame for you in that regard. But, it's a very graphic film. I think it goes a little bit further than HBO does. But not much further, because HBO is pretty graphic. Cora, I'm glad you got a membership. That's so sweet of you. David, it's an extremely bleak movie, which is nice. I like that. I think it's important. That's right, Dancing Dog 60. Don't watch this with your parents. They will probably wonder what kind of content you're watching the rest of the time they're not there. You should be like, it's Oscar frontrunner. What do you want from me, man? I'm as surprised as you are. Let's see here. Although it's funny when you get older and you can still watch movies with your parents, and then they're like, we don't mind, we enjoyed it. I gotta tell you, my parents really liked Poor Things. I was shocked. They were like, what a good movie. And I was like, did you watch Poor Things? Did you not see? And they were like, yeah, we found it fascinating. And I was like, wow. So, it's funny. It's really interesting to get to know your parents as adults, when you get older. So maybe you can watch Anora with the family. Although I did have an opportunity to go see it with my dad, and I didn't think that was a good idea. So I did not go to see Anora with my dad. I watched my screener by myself. Okay. Dane, I don't know if they're Yorgos Lanthimos fans, because I don't think they liked The Favorite very much, but they liked that movie. Adam, I don't think that Mickey Madison is a lock for Best Actor. I think she's a lock to be nominated, which is going to be amazing for her career. Amazing for her career. And I think she deserves it. But, hold on, the light's too bright now. That's better. I think she deserves it, but I don't think she's a lock to win. I mean, again, I wouldn't vote for her to win. All right, I think we're ready for the next story of the day. Hold on, wait a minute. Let me move my arrow. I have sad news to deliver to you. All right, mini review number 2. Boop. Oh, Queer is not a very good movie. I was shocked. And you can see the Rotten Tomatoes score just dropping. Because I think it's losing a lot of its awards chances. Because everybody's like, I don't know why everybody was raving about it. What was it, Venice? Because it's not a very good movie. It's actually, I would say, a bad movie. I actually would argue with you. See, Wavy didn't like it either. I actually would tell you not to see this movie. Maybe wait till it gets to a streaming service so you can watch Daniel Craig's earlier scenes. But this is a little bit of a waste of your time, I'm sorry to say. Let me bring up some pictures here. All right, just to give you a little flavor for the film. All right. Oh, I forgot to include one. I'll have to bring it in when I'm ready. Ah, darn it. All right, so anyway, the film that I feel this is most like is Apocalypse Now, which is a crazy comparison. But I think when you see the second half of this movie, you will see why I said like Apocalypse Now. It reminded me very much of that film, but I think not as good. Now, you might say if I'm making the Apocalypse Now comparison, perhaps I did not get it. I'm sure that some people who like the film, but I think it's less and less people, but might say that that's the case. But I'm just telling you, it's not a good movie. And I'm surprised it's so bad. Because Luca Guadagnino, I haven't seen all of his movies, but the films that I have seen, Call Me By Your Name, Challengers, and then, of course, this next film. But I've really liked Luca Guadagnino's work. So to see this film made me feel like, ooh, what a surprising, let me get to Luca Guadagnino. What a surprising misfire. I mean, I really liked Challengers quite a bit. And so it's weird that this is just, so much worse. You're like, whoa, it's so much worse. Now, as for the source material, it's based on a true story. It's written by William S. Burroughs about his own actual experiences living this. So I think you have to give it some credibility for that reason, some respect, because it's actually somebody's life. And people are saying that its best chance is Daniel Craig. For Daniel Craig to, oh, that's interesting. The book is bad, Zeke, because the movie I think is equally bad. So people are saying Daniel Craig is a very good choice for lead actor for this role. But I got to tell you, I mean, he has one speech. I'll talk about that in a moment. But who he reminded me of? He decided to do, for some reason, like a comedic take. When he does like an American, it's very this is also a very adult film, just so you know. This is also a very adult film. It has 2 sequences in particular that are extremely adult. Well, let's see if I can find the image that I wanted. Yes. All right, here is Leslie Jordan. Do you remember Leslie Jordan from Will and Grace? Very funny comedian. He's a very petite man, very funny guy, very, very funny. And I have to say that Daniel Craig's performance reminded me a lot of Leslie Jordan, who did pass away. But it reminded me of that. And I think that Leslie Jordan would have been a better choice for this role, because it seemed more to me like Daniel Craig was doing a caricature. And I think that he was pretending to be in the situation that someone like Leslie Jordan would honestly find themselves in. I was like, just like I feel like Kieran Culkin is copying Zach Galifianakis in A Real Pain, I think that Daniel Craig is copying Leslie Jordan. And I think if you see this movie, you'll probably be like, that's kind of like somewhat of a Leslie Jordan impression. So that was something that I thought was, because every time you're watching it, he has the problems and the situation of Leslie Jordan, but he's James Bond. So you're like, hey, man, like, who are you kidding? Like, it just seems disingenuous, I felt, to me, with Daniel Craig's performance. The other thing that's interesting about, so hold on. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is the speech that he gives. So he gives this speech, which was the best thing in the movie. And in fact, I couldn't rewind. I was on my phone because I was so bored. And then I was like, oh, that's actually pretty interesting what he's saying. But then for some reason, my screener wouldn't let me rewind. So I was like, I guess I missed part of it. But I was listening to it, and I thought it was such an interesting speech about at that time period. Daniel Craig's character is talking about the realization when he was younger that he was gay. And then his fear, his very visceral, real fear, that would mean he would forever be alone. Because think about it, at that time period, you couldn't be out. He had to move to Mexico to be out. And, how could you ever hope to have a family? Pete Buttigieg had a wonderful speech. He said this a couple of times recently about how much progress has been in his own lifetime, that he could be a boy who would think that he would never have a family and children, to being an adult who does have a husband and children. And it's we'll see what happens in the next 4 years, but has been felt to be just run of the mill. It's not even considered shocking. And so that is really incredible. That is really incredible. And so for this speech to really, and I thought Daniel Craig did that very well. He shared that fear where you just understood that he was just so scared of being alone. However, that's also at the same time a big problem with the film because he's just such a desperate and needy individual that it's tough to watch. It's almost like the gay, whatever time period this is, version of he's just not that into you. Like, I wanted to scream at my television, Drew Starkey's character does not like you. Go find someone else. Have some self-respect. Like his willingness, and it wasn't even like, oh, he's debasing himself, so this is really interesting, and let's see what that psychological situation is like. You're just like, dude, you're embarrassing yourself. He doesn't like you. You tried. You tried as hard as you could. Good for you. But I'm begging you, go look for somebody else. And so it was tough. It was tough to watch. And he had such low self-esteem that it made the character, I'm sorry to say, tough to root for and a little unlikable. And some actors can portray someone who has low self-esteem and you want to pull them up. You're like, don't feel that way. Like, I do wonder if Leslie Jordan had played the role, you'd be like, oh, poor Leslie Jordan, But you're sitting there and you're like, you're James Bond. If you just combed your hair and pulled your pants down to a reasonable height around your waist, you'd be fine. So, some of you are saying this is very indicative of the gay community. And, maybe this film will speak more so to the gay community. Adam's Fear, I didn't feel it was the point. I don't think that it was done in that way. I think that there are ways that you would have been like, oh no, if only someone would tell this guy how great he is. But I guess because Daniel Craig's performance to me seemed like a caricature. It didn't feel like an organic performance. It seemed to me like he was putting on a show. It's interesting that some of you are talking about the gay community and things like that, because one of the most interesting things, side note, this is interesting. This is the interesting part of a live review. One of the most interesting things I ever experienced was when The White Lotus season 1 was on. And a lot of people were like, why does the manager of the resort hate that white rich guy who wants to get the right room so much? Why does it just flow through his veins like that? And Murray Bartlett is such an incredible actor that even if you didn't totally understand where he was coming from, he took you on that journey anyway. Murray Bartlett. And maybe that's why, maybe in some ways that's why they should have cast an actual gay actor in this role. Maybe there's something that Daniel Craig just can't get about it. And maybe that's why, to me, it felt not genuine. But after White Lotus ended, somebody wrote a Twitter thread, which was one of the most eye-opening things, and it really spoke to the reason to have the type of person that's being portrayed be the type of person that that delivers the material. Because Mike White knew about this type of individual. And Mike White, so this person said that Mike White was spotlighting a very specific type of gay man who is white and, and could be passed off as a straight person. And this to me was very interesting, who is upset that white straight guys benefit from the patriarchy and they don't, just because they're gay. And they felt, why aren't they getting the same special treatment and the same, free ticket through life as they see it, which they feel is owed to them because of they check all the other boxes. I never would have known that if that person had not shared that on social media. But Mike White knew it, and I think Murray Bartlett got it, and that's why you still got it. Even if you didn't totally get it, you were like, I see it. And then when that blew my mind. I was like, that's incredible. And so I think, like, speaking to you guys, I'm like, this is fascinating. And I think that lack of self-confidence, and I did get the idea of the loneliness. That idea of the loneliness really did reach out to me in that speech. And maybe that's because that's the part that as a straight man, Daniel Craig could identify with the most. But he just could not bring to life, I think, the lack of, I think maybe he didn't understand maybe partly why he would have such low self-esteem. I think he just didn't get it. And that's why. So I think in some ways Daniel Craig is like, unfortunately, even though he's such a champion for this material, and he was the one who wanted to make this movie, I think he is a shining example of why sometimes, there's been a big discussion lately about, do you need to match the sexuality of your character, going in both directions, And I think that's, I think it's a case-by-case basis, like anything. But in this movie, I don't think Daniel Craig had the capacity to understand a large part of the role. And, Drew Starkey hasn't, let's talk about Drew Starkey. Maybe that's what was missing here. Because, Mike in Challengers, Josh Connor and Mike Faced, I like Mike Faced better. I don't know why the world has picked Josh O'Connor over Mike Faced. It annoys me to no end. I'm like, Mike Faced is right there! And they're like, no, we like this other guy better. And I'm like, it's Mike Faced! He's clearly superior in every way! But anyway, I'm not sure what their sexuality is. They've both done a lot of gay roles, but I felt they really got what they were conveying as actors. And so like the unspoken chemistry between the two of them was like incredible. Like that churro scene, no one will ever forget the churro scene. Ever. And their tennis match as well later. I mean, no one will ever forget it. Those two scenes are incredible, largely because of those two actors and Luca Guadagnino's direction. And interesting, I think that Armie Hammer and Timothée Chalamet, who I believe are both straight, were really good in Call Me By Your Name. But for some reason, Daniel Craig and Drew Starkey, it just didn't work. The magic wasn't there. I'm not quite sure why. Now I want you to watch Queer and to tell me why you think it's not clicking. Because it's just not working in the way those other films work. So, it's funny, David Kyle, I just understood why you were bringing up Maestro, where Bradley Cooper wanted an Oscar so badly that he forced himself into a role, and he also played a gay character that he didn't totally understand. I think that, this is so fascinating to me. I'm so glad that we had this conversation. Let me get rid of this one picture or move it because it's in our way. Okay? This is just so great to me because there's been a lot of arguments on social media about whether or not they're like, that's what an actor is. An actor can figure this stuff out. And you're like, but I'm watching these things and the actor isn't figuring it out. And while, of course, no group is a monolith, there is connective tissue. There's connective tissue to how women perceive things, for sure. The gay community, and even within the gay community, gay men, lesbians, the trans community. These are all different nuanced experiences. Also, I'm sure the Black and Latino communities, but even then, regionally, I'm sure very big differences. And so this to me is fascinating. And maybe there's a straight actor who would have gotten it. Maybe no one explained it to Daniel Craig. But Daniel, and Ike says the best actors can figure it out. And, that's a little bit of an indictment on Daniel Craig. But I feel it's a fair comment. because he didn't figure it out. I think Daniel Craig was more interested in the part where they go looking for drugs at the end, the very like Apocalypse Now section. And I think he was interested in doing the graphic sequences, which are, very adult, very adult. That's true. Brokeback Mountain with Jake Gyllenhaal and Heath Ledger. That's another great example. And Juan says these two actors were cast for their looks. And also because, James Bond playing this role. That does bring something to it. But in fact, I feel it works against the role. Because he keeps having such low self-esteem. And you're like, dude, you are James Bond. Hey, Gareth, thank you so much. And also, I think a big part of Daniel Craig being James Bond is that while Daniel Craig is not classically handsome, he really still worked as James Bond. And that was kind of the whole point of him being James Bond. Remember, everybody was upset when he first was cast? They were like, oh, he can't be James Bond. He doesn't have the right look. But yet he proved everybody wrong because he was so confident. He just oozed charisma. And so, I think that you're like, how can you go from a character that's just so confident to one that is not confident? It just doesn't work. Gareth, I think I said thank you. Popcorn Roulette. Somebody liked your question. Let's see what it was. How does Queer compare to The Kiss of the Spider-Woman? I have actually, I'm sorry to say, never seen that film. I'm excited about the new version of it. I think Daniel Craig is he looks funny in this movie. I think he is handsome, but I think, in a different way. I think, there's many different versions of attractiveness. Thank goodness. I think sometimes, there's that quality. Either you have, some people they just have it. So I'm just saying, I had a big problem with this film. For some reason, this film just didn't work for me. And I'm not alone because the Rotten Tomatoes score is just dropping consistently. Let me see what it's currently at. Yeah, it's fallen to 77 at this point. I suspect it'll go lower. It's not an entertaining film. But yeah, Kay Walton, I'm really glad we talked it through as well. And you guys taught me something new about the gay community. I didn't know that self-esteem was, those self-esteem issues were that rampant. But I think I would imagine particularly so at that time period. But really interesting. Drew Starkey looks phenomenal. He looks great. He looks like a tall drink of water. As soon as he walks on screen, you can understand why Daniel Craig is instantly drawn to him. But he's just so cruel to Daniel Craig that it makes you not like the character. And then also they never give an explanation for why he is cruel to Daniel Craig. You're like, dude, do you not have any empathy as an individual whatsoever? That you can't at least let this guy down easy? It was just so mean. And I felt without any explanation. Now, maybe sometimes that happens, but, the movie was just not working. All right, Jason Schwartzman is in this movie. He is substantially heavier in this film to the point that I wondered if perhaps it was prosthetics. But I don't think that it is, because he's also in The Last Showgirl, which we're going to talk about, and he was a little bit bigger there, too. But he's very funny in this movie. He has a nice job. He plays a bear, very much a bear. I don't even know if bear is the right qualification for him. But he was very good in the role, and he played Daniel Craig's best friend. And it's interesting that you talk about youth, Tyler, because I think, you have a number of gay men in this movie who are older and are really feeling that. They're feeling the loss of their youth and that the loss of their currency, as you're saying, within the community. And it's just making them more desperate. I felt very bad for them. But I don't think that it was explored in a constructive way. It just didn't work for me as a film. All right, then also Leslie Manville. This is Leslie Manville. Hold on, let me show you. My thing went behind the arrow. This is Leslie Manville, who played Princess Margaret, the older version, in The Crown. I mean, she's unrecognizable. Just absolutely incredible. I mean, it's a very small role and she isn't given much to do, but just the fact that she walked out onto set like that is pretty amazing. So I was like, who is that? And later I looked it up and it was Leslie Manville. But yeah. Isaiah says the gay men historically don't get attention as younger people. So we struggle later in life. But I just thought everybody was don't get as much attention as younger people. I'm confused. Isaiah, thank you for sharing that with us, but I'm not quite sure what you're saying. All right, so I don't think The Queer is a very good film, and I would be surprised. I don't think it's going to win anything, and maybe Daniel Craig will get a nomination, but I don't think he should get it, even more so after our conversation. Because I'm like, dude, you don't even understand what you were playing. I'm like, maybe I don't think I'm going to nominate him, because I think he works against the material. All right. I wouldn't give him a Razzie. I mean, he was well-intentioned. I mean, a Razzie's really mean. I try not to be mean. I mean, sometimes I like making fun of stuff. But the thing is, I always feel you can come back. I never want to, it's like, I always feel like, it's just a good old razzing, and it's like, oh, we love you. Oh, maybe for Joaquin Phoenix. Maybe the Razzies for the Joker. But, mostly for Todd Phillips. I wouldn't give a Razzie to the actors necessarily. I mean, Joaquin Phoenix doesn't know any better. All right. So then finally, mini review number 3. Boom, baby. All right, The Last Showgirl. Let's talk about this movie. Let me give you a little flavor here. All right. I'm surprised. This movie, it also kind of floats around. I actually wasn't feeling well, as you know, last week, so I watched this and Anora on the same day. Oh, what a double feature. Very similar films. I actually preferred this one. It had a little bit more story, and I really liked Pamela Anderson's performance. But this movie reminds me of Lost in Translation. Gia Coppola, of course, is related to Sofia Coppola, and that was Sofia Coppola's breakout film over 20 years ago. Of course, Bill Murray was very famous for it, but so was Scarlett Johansson. And I think that Gia Coppola has an extremely similar aesthetic to Sofia Coppola. If you thought Sofia Coppola directed, you would, they're interchangeable, at least with this feature, with this evidence. But yes, this is, it's a little bit like Lost in Translation, Alexander Padilla. It's a little bit of a slog, but I think that at the end of the day, I felt it was worth my time. All right, so Gia Coppola, I think she's a pretty solid director. I liked her casting choices. I didn't put it here, but Brenda Song, Kiernan Shipka is in this movie, and also, I'm blanking on her name. What's Carrie Fisher's daughter's name? She's in this movie as well. Billie Lourd, thank you. She's in the film as well. So interesting choices. And I will say that one of the things I like the most about this film is that it was able to surprise me. You watch Anora, it's pretty much set from the beginning what's going to happen. And you just see it unfold. You're like, it's the anti-Pretty Woman. Not going to work out. And the only question is, how is it not going to work out? But while, they are hurtling towards the closure of this show, that the Pamela Anderson's character has been in for 30 years, it's the only life she's ever known, they still had a couple of really interesting surprises that I was really impressed with. That is Jamie Lee Curtis. We're going to talk about that because that was just incredible. So I think Gia Coppola did a really nice job. I liked it a lot. This film has some nudity in it, but it doesn't have any adult content. It's just mostly getting changed, what it's like to be in a dressing room. So that's the most that this film has in it. Not from Pamela Anderson, though. Just a little. Jason Schwartzman is in this movie as well. Jason Schwartzman has one scene, but it is one of the best scenes I've ever seen. The way he speaks to Pamela Anderson, it was not only did he deliver it incredibly well, but it was incredibly well written. It reminded me, actually, remember that movie with Florence Pugh that Dwayne Johnson produced about a woman who becomes a wrestler, and Vince Vaughn is going around giving people, he has to tell some people some hard facts about their prospects in a certain line of work? I wish people were more, not everybody's always right. Somebody threw, what was it? Jay Leno's or Arnold, I forget whose story it was, Fighting with My Family, threw somebody's headshot in a garbage can. But that person still went on to become famous, But I think that sometimes that rejection, if it's honest, can help you realize how you need to pivot maybe a little bit. I think that, the worst thing that you can do to somebody is not be honest with them as to why you're rejecting them. So, I mean, it was brutal. It was a brutal takedown. You usually don't hear people talk that way to women because people try to be a little bit nicer to women. But it was brutal, and I loved it. I thought it was incredible. It was just an amazing scene. It was one scene. It was one speech. I wasn't even sure it was him at first, and it was fantastic. It's worth seeing the movie for that scene alone. All right, then as for supporting cameos, Jamie Lee Curtis is in there. This is Jamie Lee Curtis. She is so good. Also, Jamie Lee Curtis has made it her mission in life to try and show off what an older body looks like. Although I gotta say, Pamela Anderson is also older, and Pamela Anderson looks incredible. Pamela Anderson looks so good. I mean, she doesn't have any nude scenes, but her costume is extremely revealing, and also is supposed to create the illusion of nudity. And she looks incredible, Pamela Anderson. We'll talk more about Pamela Anderson at the end, but Pamela Anderson looks great. She looks right at home on that stage. But Jamie Lee Curtis, I'll just say, Jamie Lee Curtis has a scene where she's changing in a locker room, and she's got a thong and stockings on. I actually thought it was very relatable and very funny. How unsexy it was. I thought that because I think all women feel that way sometimes. But it was fantastic. It was a great sequence. Jamie Lee Curtis is fearless in this movie. I thought she was really, really good. She plays, I don't want to give away all the aspects of her character. She is the best friend of Pamela Anderson's character. And I thought she was just really interesting. She has this one scene which is so weird, but you're like, I like it. I think it's good. And then I want to talk about Dave Bautista. This is the best thing I've ever seen Dave Bautista do. I liked him in glasses in the beginning of Blade Runner. I was like, yeah, you wear those glasses, Dave. They do make you look more intellectual. But I thought that Dave Bautista was just perfectly cast here. It's a small role, but it's a really interesting role. And he really just, it was perfect. Talk about genius of casting. It was just, they couldn't have cast a better person in this role, and he did a wonderful job. I mean, I'm tempted to nominate him for Best Supporting because I liked him so much, and I'm still thinking about it. I mean, I really liked him in this movie. Then as for Pamela Anderson, Pamela Anderson tried to act back in the day. I wish she had been nicer to that Pam and Tommy miniseries, because what Lily James did with giving her character dimension, her persona, her famous persona, was, I thought, really wonderful, and I thought it benefited Pamela Anderson. And maybe I was more open to her and her story here because I had seen Pam and Tommy, which had fleshed out in a personality way Pamela Anderson. This is definitely my favorite of the three. I thought that I felt very different about Pamela Anderson after watching Pam and Tommy, and I wish that she had been more. I thought Lily James really stood up for her, actually. And I feel bad that she was so dismissive of the project. But here, so Pamela Anderson was made fun of quite a bit back in the day for trying to be an actress. Remember barbed wire and all that stuff? And it seemed like she was indeed awful. But again, maybe it's just this is really good source material, or really good material for her, and she relates to it. She was a Playboy centerfold. Here she's playing an exotic dancer to a degree. Not like Anora. Her whole point is that there's artistry to this show, which I thought was very interesting. I'm glad you like barbed wire, Doc Hayes. You were an early Pamela Anderson acting fan. But I have to say, she did a wonderful job acting here. I think, sometimes she's a little flat, but that's because the character's supposed to be that way. I thought that, she has a couple really interesting lines and a couple of mini speeches, mini monologues that she really does a good job delivering. She has to do an audition, which, she has this great line where they ask, she has to audition. So they're like, name, and then they say age. And, she's so embarrassed, but she has this great cover where she says, a gentleman never asks a lady's age. And she did it so well. I just was really impressed with her performance. I thought, and her character was angry at life. Her character stood up for herself. Her character was not perfect, which was the whole point, because Billie Lourd plays her daughter, and they have a very contentious relationship. But also some of the things that she said to the other dancers, that, so often they portray the older dancer as like the mother figure to the other dancers. And there was an element of that. But boy, Pamela Anderson's character really hated that, because she didn't want to be the mom to all these women. She felt she was a peer to them. And that was just really interesting to see. And I like that they addressed that, like this idea that, especially with the boomer generation, this idea that, it used to be that you would age up as you got older and you would voluntarily go into the next group. But what's very interesting to me is that you're seeing it with the boomers, and you're even seeing it with their kids and all the generations after. But I think the boomers stopped acting their age. Remember, people used to have a saying, they'd be like, act your age. And the boomers broke that. But I think even more so, generations after that, like that's why the Disney adult has come about. Because it used to be that you would do childish things and you would play games and you would go to theme parks, but when you became an adult, you would put away childish things and that would be now for your child to enjoy. But now, people go, life is hard, I'm going to do whatever the hell I want and what makes me happy. And that's why you're seeing that change. And that's fascinating to me. And I think you see that to this degree with this character. She feels she could still be a showgirl. And I got to tell you, based on what I saw, she could, But it was just very interesting. I mean, again, it's slow. It's a slow movie. It's not going to totally hold your attention all the time. But I thought it had the most interesting and unique ideas. I don't think it has as strong a pitch as Realistic Pretty Woman, but I really liked it, and I was really impressed with everybody's performance. Does anybody have any questions or comments about this? It's very short, Kay Walton. That's another great thing about The Last Showgirl. It's like a little under 90 minutes. I was like, thank you for this. It's like 87 minutes with credits. I'm glad it doesn't overstay its welcome. It comes out, this movie comes out, it comes out in just New York and Los Angeles for a qualifying run in the middle of December, but then I think it hits theaters in January. It's a sweet little film. I liked it. Jason Schwartzman had one scene in this movie towards the end, but again, it was my favorite scene in the film, or one of them. But he is also bigger there too. He's like suddenly a big guy. He's like James Gandolfini size. I didn't even notice the new Miley Cyrus song. I mean, I like Miley Cyrus, but I'm not a big music person, so I don't always recognize those things. Atmosphere, I might watch The Substance. I think I'm going to watch The Substance before I vote, and The Apprentice. Because I've seen it creep up people's awards things. And also, I felt kind of bad that nobody would talk to Sebastian Stan. And he couldn't do variety actors on actors. I felt really kind of bad for him about that. I almost wish they had just found any actor who was willing to do it. I'd be like, Sebastian, do you have a friend who will sit here and talk to you about it? Or maybe Jeremy Strong, because they're in the same film. Be like, why don't you guys both sit here and talk about Trump together? Because I just felt bad that happened. And it has pretty good scores. Oh, for those of you who haven't heard, they have, Variety has that series, Actors on Actors, where they get paired up during award season to talk to each other about their performances. And Sebastian Stan wanted to do it, but no other actor was willing to talk to him because they didn't want to discuss Donald Trump. I think not only because of their probably political allegiance, but also because they didn't, they don't want to say anything and that gets them in trouble on social media. They're like, they don't need that. But I mean, I don't know. This is why I always get into trouble. Because maybe at first I'd be like, yeah, I don't want to do that. But then when they said nobody will talk to poor Sebastian, I'll be damned if I wouldn't be like, I'll do it. I'm glad to hear Maria was good, David Kyle. I mean, I would feel bad. I'd be like, it's not fair. All right, we're heading a little over time here. Let's see here. Natra says, I saw The Apprentice. Sebastian Stan for Tommy Lee to Trump was insane. He was so good. Vote for him. Okay, I'm considering voting for him. I'm seeing the movie really move up in a lot of categories on like all the lists, the watch lists, and I'm curious. So I think I'm going to check it out. Thanks, Phil. Wavy, I got to tell you, Netflix is very vocal talking to us in the Critics' Choice community, and they have not put Maria in front of any of us. So methinks maybe it's not a great film. Let's see. Although they didn't send us The Apprentice either. I was like, how is The Apprentice not on my Critics' Choice app? Am I going to have to pay for this? But I'll watch it. I want to watch it. Hey, Dory. Always nice to see you. All right, let's do the Q&A. And then I must go. Malik, I have a video I'm making for Friday. I have a lot of family stuff this week, and we're going to do a live stream tomorrow for sure. John Kamara, I didn't really watch Amelia Perez. I can't comment on it. I mean, I saw a little bit of what they were doing, and I did think that it was interesting, but I'm like ethereal movied out. Steven says, why don't you think horror performances are taken more seriously? I wish Naomi Scott was in the conversation for Smile too. I agree. Natalie Portman, you're right, but that's because, that's because it was Darren Aronofsky. That pushes it in the right direction. But it's hard. There are incredible horror performances this year. Tyler, I did find my Milano cookies. Thank you. But I threw half of them away, or 1/3 of them away, because I'm like, it's too much sugar. I can't eat this much sugar. RamenZilla, I thought Arcane Season 2 Part 3 was amazing. Way better than the first 2 parts. It was frustrating that they didn't send it. I guess that's another thing that I'm a little upset about with Arcane. That I had to go through a bunch of crap in my review with people being like, you just don't get Arcane, man. Because they were like, they hadn't seen Part 2. Some people came back and said they understood. But if they had sent me all the parts as a reviewer up front, then I could have said it was good. Because the ending was good. But instead I have to put out a review. I don't know how, I might not review stuff in the future if they don't give me all the episodes. Because it's the same problem I had with The Acolyte. Where I was singing, I had the opposite problem with The Acolyte. Where I'm like, what a great show. And then I saw the rest of it and I was like, oh no, it is bad. It's really hard to review something when you haven't seen the whole thing. Oh, Amar, I cried in Wicked at the end with Defying Gravity. I just thought that was so relatable, to be doing everything you were supposed to and to be trying to be your best and with good intentions and excelling, doing a good job. But instead of being celebrated, vilified. I just thought that was really incredible. I think that happens to a lot of different groups. Platinum Diva says, what? Can't throw away cookies? I know it's the holidays. I mean, every Christmas I do the same thing. Right after Thanksgiving, I make chocolate chip cookies from scratch. I eat some of the dough and I watch the Grinch animated movie. I do it every year. And so that's coming up. And so I can't eat too much sugar before that because then it's going to be really bad for me. But that's what I do every year. It's my tradition. I love it. Thanks, Dory. Wavy, I think I'm going to make a video about my vote for the final. I don't know. Let's see how slow it is. If it's really slow, I'll do a live stream on explaining my nominations. Charlize Theron is in this Nolan movie. This Nolan movie has so many people in it. My goodness. Is it a lot of red shirts? Antonio, I'm so sorry you have to wait so long to see Wicked in Japan. I think, they have to negotiate with the country and their film commission. And then also, they have a local distributor who partners with them. But then also another issue is that there are other movies, local films coming out. And also there are different times of year that work better for different communities. Like the holidays are different, the weather is different. So they really try and position these things to do the best. Philippe says, watched Conclave and Gladiator Sunday with my dad. We loved Conclave, hated Gladiator 2. Right? That's funny. Force Awakens is a very good comparison. I'm so glad you saw Conclave with your dad, though, and you loved it. Conclave is such a good movie. I love Conclave. Wiki Nomad says, the nails on the Wicked interview. Yes, Cynthia Erivo. I mean, both of them have amazing manicures. Stephen Turner says it's a Nolan film that women will have 2 lines. That's probably true. I really wish that he would have better roles for women. Adam Sphere, it's funny you ask me about Conan hosting the Oscars. I asked an industry friend of mine what they thought of that, and they said that nobody in town must have wanted it to go to Conan. I mean, I think the internet was happy with it. Although, again, some people online like Conan, but where are you watching his stuff? His stuff has horrible viewership, which is why he keeps sliding down in terms of what he's doing career-wise. But my friend who works in the industry said it's a very low-paying gig. It's very hard to do it well because, you have such a set structure. And then also, they said there's too much chance to get in trouble. It's a low-paying gig, a huge commitment, hard to be funny in that structure, and there's too easy a chance that you're going to maybe offend people and get in trouble. So, I think that's why they've had a hard time getting anybody to do it. Alexander says, based off Ariana Grande's reception of Wicked, do you think that she can pull off a share after Lady Gaga has tried and failed? It's hard to tell. It's too early. She's only had one movie. She's like, who would ever think what would happen to Lady Gaga, okay, after we saw A Star Is Born? It seemed like she was off to the races. No, Antonio, I'm not familiar with that of Daniel Craig's work. Harry says, do you think Angelina Jolie will get a Best Actress nomination for Maria? I don't know. I haven't seen it, and I got to tell you, they're not pushing it very hard. I'll be curious to see. Speaking of horror films, they are pushing Nosferatu very hard. It is very good. I plan to vote for Nosferatu in a couple of categories, but I'll be curious if they can get other people to vote for Nosferatu. We'll see. We'll see. All right, I have to get going. I had a lovely time talking to you as always, and there will be a live stream tomorrow, for sure. I really want to make sure there are 2 live streams this week with the holiday because there was just one last week. All right, everybody. Mwah. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.